Far too many women carry the invisible scars of sexual trauma. Rape, assault, harassment, these aren't rare events. They happen in silence, behind closed doors, and far too often, they're ignored, minimized, or dismissed. But just because the world looks away doesn't mean we will. At Inner Power Psychiatry, we talk about what matters. Today, we begin a vital conversation about sexual trauma, what it is, how it impacts the brain and body, and why your healing matters. Welcome to Inner Power Psychiatry. This is a video series on sexual trauma and PTSD, where we explore trauma, recovery, and mental health. Through both a clinical lens and a deeply compassionate heart. Whether you're a survivor, a loved one, or someone seeking to understand, your journey toward healing begins here. What is sexual trauma? Sexual trauma refers to any sexual experience that is non-consensual, forced, or unwanted. It causes emotional, psychological, or physical harm. This can include rape, molestation, sexual coercion, harassment, or even exposure to sexual behavior without consent. But what defines the trauma is not just the event. It's how your nervous system and psyche respond to the experience. If you felt powerless, terrified, violated, or frozen, that's trauma. Your reaction is real. And it's valid. Who it affects? Sexual trauma can happen to anyone, but women are disproportionately affected. In the US, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men report experiencing sexual violence in their lifetime. LGBTQ+ individuals, people with disabilities, immigrants, and communities of color are also at higher risk, and often face more barriers to care. This is a public health crisis, and yet so many survivors are left feeling isolated or blamed. That stops here. How trauma affects the mind and body. Sexual trauma doesn't just leave emotional wounds. It changes how your brain and body function. Survivors often develop PTSD, depression, anxiety, chronic pain, or dissociation. You may have flashbacks, feel numb, or lose trust in others, or yourself. That's not weakness. That's your body trying to survive. Trauma activates the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses. Many survivors freeze during assault, and then blame themselves for not fighting back. But freezing is a biological survival response. You did what you needed to survive. Period. Breaking the myths. Trauma is never the survivor's fault. It doesn't matter what you were wearing. Whether you knew the person or not, consent is key. Saying no out loud is not the only way to give consent. Consent must be freely given, without pressure, fear, or manipulation. Anything less than consent is a violation. If you're struggling to process what happened, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. Your healing journey is unique to you. Healing is not defined by a timeline. If you've experienced sexual trauma, I want you to hear this. You are not broken. You are not alone. And your healing is possible. Whether through therapy, community, or self-guided work. There are paths to healing that honor your pace and your voice. In our next episode, we'll talk about PTSD, what it looks like after trauma, and how it can be treated with compassion and science. If this video spoke to you, please like, share, and subscribe. You deserve peace. You deserve safety. And your inner power is still yours.